and captions. All right, welcome everybody to our January coffee chat. Happy New Year. These are our agreements that we go through each meeting. We practice active and empathetic listening and sharing. We challenge the idea, not the person. Be both teachers and learners. Take space and make space. Stories stay and lessons leave. We use I statements. One person speaks at a time, and be here and present now. And welcome everybody. Go ahead and put in the chat your name, where you're calling in from, and what is your theme for the new year. Lindsay's asked this question on a couple of meetings and I really liked it, so I stole it from her, but let us know the theme. Mine is saying yes. And I'm Laura, by the way, Laura Jackson. I'm the Director of Community at PFCC Partners. And I live in Eugene, Oregon. And my theme this year is saying yes and taking more chances in my personal life. I feel like I want to get out in my community and just see what's out there. So let us know in the chat your theme for the year. Checking the chat over here. Hi, Linda, joining us from the car. I'm glad you're not driving.
Me too.
Danny says, play more music. I love that. Janice, stay as healthy as possible. Libby says, slow my roll and be present. Ooh, Lori's theme this year is explore. I like that. Emily's is expanding access to new voices. Love it. Dion, living with intention. You are motivating me here. Karen's is self-care. Nadine's being a better listener. Bobby says, my main goal at this time is to find my son a living organ donor for his kidney transplant that has failed. Oh, I'm so sorry. Wow. It's originally done in November of 2015. Well, I sure hope it happens. Oh, Linda's does also say yes. If I truly have time and can do it. More daydreaming from Ting. Joe says all things better health. Sherry says learn when to say no. And Lindsay's is organization. So many. All right. Rosie's is do more international patient partner work. Ooh, that's exciting. Got patients from Kristen, and Michelle says new actions for new results. And Annette says no looking back, just forward. I love that. Keep them coming in the chat if you haven't yet. But we'll go ahead and get started here. And I'll introduce Libby and Danny Van Leeuwen here to talk to you all about engagement. And Libby is our founder and CEO here at PFCC Partners. And Danny Van Leeuwen is a podcaster, blogger, advisor. His podcast is called Health Hats. And he is very involved also in the PFA network. So I'm going to stop sharing screen and let you take it away.
Thank you, Laura. And hello, everyone. Libby Hoy, PFCC Partners. And gosh, I could add a million other titles to Danny's introduction. And I would call friend, mentor, really all-around smart guy. I know that's not really a title, but it could be for today. And today we really just wanted to have a little bit of a conversation. As many of you know, and for those of you who are new to us today, welcome, first of all. This is the PFAnetwork community coffee chat. So this is a community of patient family partners, people using their lived experience to partner with healthcare entities to basically make it better for the next guy. So I'm glad that you're here to listen into this conversation. And I've really been thinking about this towards the end of the year last year. And of course, as we start the new year and we start to think freshness and how can we, be better, do better. As I started to say, Patient Family Centered Care Partners is a continuous improvement organization. We don't pretend to have all of the answers. We just create really strong groups of people with differing perspectives to help us learn more. And one of the things that I want to learn more is how can I be a better partner in my relationships with healthcare entities, with healthcare staff members, researchers, measure developments. What are those skills that I need as a patient family partner to really advance the impact that patient family partners, not just me, but how do I leave the door open for the next person? And so I was having this catch up with Danny a couple weeks ago, and we kind of started chatting, and Danny shared with me some of the things that he's been thinking about and in terms of how he can improve. And I just think as one of the very foundational leaders of patient family partners, it was really inspiring to me to think, wow, Danny's still trying to improve, still trying to get stronger as a patient family partner. Let's as a community think about what we each need to do and what we collectively need to do to strengthen our impact as we partner with healthcare entities. So that was a bit of level setting of what got us here today. But Danny, in case there's anyone who doesn't know you, I would love if you just introduce yourself.
Okay, hi, I'm Danny Van Leeuwen. I know a lot of you. Nice to see you all. This is quite a group. Yeah, so, my shtick is health hats, and you can see there, well, you can see my horn, but see all those hats hanging on the wall there? Those are my winter hats. So I'm health hats because I'm a person with MS. I've been care partner to several family members end of life. I'm a nurse. I've led a couple of electronic health record implementations system-wide. I've been in the C-suite of healthcare. I'm a family man. I wear a lot of hats. And right now, probably the big things that I do in this arena is I'm on the board of governors of PCORI, the Patient-Centered Outcomes Research Institute, and I'm a podcaster, video creator, content creator. So really what it is I'm kind of full of myself. And I'll tell you the thing that I've been like, I'm really, I just think so much of this work is about relationships and building relationships and, building a network and feeding the network. And so when I say feeding the network is when Sherry Binns contacts me and says, could you blah, 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 or do you know somebody who blah, blah, blah? My answer is always yes. That's like feeding the network, right? Whoever it is, if it's, Janice or Ping or, so anyway, so that's one thing. The other thing that I'm working on, believe it or not, is shutting up. And trying to, in any meeting that I'm in is, listen at least 75% of the time, which I know you'll be shocked to hear this, but I find that really difficult because I am full of myself and I like to tell a story and, I already know what I know. And it's like, what don't I know? And so that's something I do. Another thing I do is in PCORI, being on the board of something that's, so my lane, the lane I operate in is I operate nationally. People have their own lane, right? So you may operate hyper locally, you may operate institutionally, you might operate regionally or in an organization. It just happens to be that my wife does the local stuff, you know, in terms of being involved in the community. I'm more on a national level. That's just where I have the relationships and I work. And so here I am, I got appointed, you know, this is like a 6-year appointment by the Comptroller General of the United States to be on this Board of Governors, which is, you know, and we have $1.5 billion every 10 years to spend on research. It's like a really
Big responsibility.
powerful place to be. On the other hand, what I know to do is to do my homework, which is that I come to every meeting prepared, and, you know, like what's on the agenda? What do I think of it? What is important to me? And again, I know you'll be surprised to know, but I usually have like 5 or 10 things that, you know, are on my list, which is way too many. And so one of the things that I do is, number one, I have a coach. I actually pay somebody that helps me every month. We get together, and she's available, you know, whenever I need to, like, get some sandpaper between my brain and my mouth. And one of the most important things we do is we take that list of 5 to 10 things and we figure out which are the 2 that are the most important. And then when I go to the meeting, I focus on 2 things. And I would say the last thing that comes to mind is that I think, like in baseball, batting 300 is really good. That there is no batting 1,000. There's really no batting 500. Like, I don't know about you guys, but I'm pretty delighted if 1 out of 3 things that I bring up gets some traction. Because, you know, it's just, I know what I know, and I care about what I care about. And again, I'm going to pick on Sherry, but if I sit in a meeting with Sherry, she's going to have something different than me. Mm-hmm. And
I think
that
Danny, it's so brilliant when you talk to me about getting coaching. I mean, I think that we have so much capacity within the PFA network to coach each other, and to be able to do that. And it's not even always the most experienced coaching the less experienced. Sometimes, and in my own experience, I have learned from newer advisors or patient family partners, kind of newer trends and how the field's evolving in their eyes. And so it's not, I don't even think it's experience versus not experience. It's more even just objective opinions about, or thoughts about how you're approaching this partnership. And the other thing that I really found interesting that I wanted you to talk about is in terms of finding your lane and really knowing yourself is the extrovert introvert. So as I have all those tests, everything, I am an introvert. And I know that might surprise some people, but I am completely an introvert. And I didn't speak until 5 or 6 years old. I was the youngest of 9. I just didn't, you know, I was not in the world that way in any sort of way until my mother and then my children needed me to have a voice. And so this is doesn't come naturally to me. And I think there's actually a lot of our network members who are introverts and who, you know, I've even been criticized by other advisors that I'm not strong enough. I'm not, you know, I don't advocate enough. I need to be more hard hitting, and that's just not me. And so I guess I want to make space for really understanding your unique contribution, because none of us can be Danny. None of us can be Sherry. Sherry's really good at being Sherry, and we want Sherry to be Sherry. She's better when she's Sherry. I don't know why we're picking on Sherry. Nadine, same thing.
I couldn't help myself.
The familiar face. But same is true with Emily. Same is true. You know, we need each person to really understand their own unique approach and space in this, I think. So I don't know if you have
Yeah.
any thoughts on
Well,
that.
I think, I think, so I was saying that, shut my mouth and only like talk no more than 25% of the time and listen. So in a way, it's sort of the same thing. Like advocacy in general is really not that much about being a mouth. There is a tremendous amount of grunt work in advocacy, like just network
Yeah,
building,
true.
database management, social media sharing, event planning. You guys know this stuff, but people. Well, first of all, whether you're like me, I'm like a supreme extrovert. Or whatever, an extreme, I don't mean supreme, extreme extrovert.
You're pretty supreme.
And but I think that there's in any when I was like a boss, like a manager or a VP or whatever, there's grunt work. And grunt work is really important. And grunt work is really important for mouths to do and leaders to do, because that's where that's where like most of the action is. So I think the when people say, I wish I whatever, I wish I was more outgoing, I wish I was more fearless, I wish I was more whatever. Well, it's like, don't worry about it. You are what you are, and you bring something. You bring a lot. I mean, first of all, you give a crap. And like that is monster. And so then you add like some activity to caring and curiosity. Well, that's like really powerful stuff. So
I think that really speaks to the value of the diversity of our community, right? And in that, and we'll get into in just a minute the different kinds of partnerships that we've found. But I think this starting with self-knowledge and recognizing, when I'm partnering with a group that really needs to hear that strong voice, I can pull in somebody that has that stronger voice, or I can pull in somebody that's going to relate and make that point go forward. So I think that this is why I wanted to bring this conversation to the community, because I want us to lean into community. I want us to lean into, calling on Emily when I can't meet that need or what have you. But I think that's a really good starting point. You don't have to be all things to all people. There's lots of folks to do it. And I think sometimes, you talk about shutting up, which I don't ever want you to do, or any of you to do. But there's time and place, right? And I think I've experienced it myself where I'm like, oh my God, I feel this incredible wave of urgency. So I have to speak. I have to get that out. And just, it's hard to check that. Yeah.
I think I'm seeing some comments here, like Sherry and Janice. Sherry, do you want to say a little more about your comment there?
What about the masks, or learning to be an introvert and recognize that within myself? I think the pandemic for me in the ability to look back and not just look forward and ignore the lessons of the past has really put me in touch with the richness of the introvert that I never recognized within myself. Introverts have such an innate ability to find value in the still small voice. I think those of us who are extroverts, and I'm with Danny on the sense that I'm an extrovert. I'm the oldest of 7 children in less than 9 years. And I had to be loud and I had responsibility. And I was far better for most of the first 60 years of my life at speaking rather than listening. And as a nurse, as Danny is, you learn to listen in certain circumstances, but you've got so much going on in your head that has to be communicated out. And it was only after getting involved in this patient-centered outcomes research, this whole movement, that I began to really not just listen for the patient voice, but seek it out and nurture it and empower it. Janice made a comment to me about how making masks has helped me to nurture that introvert within me. Since September of 2020, I've just made it a mission to protect as many people as I could. And we put our going out to eat money into fabric and elastic and stuff like that. And I've made well over 10,000 masks, and most all of them have been donated to organizations or given to individuals. Just my way of helping to protect people. But I think the point that Danny brings up, and the point that I've brought up with recognizing that alter ego within us, the introvert versus extrovert, is so fruitful and so powerful and so empowering, enabling. If you're going to be doing work like this, that's going to have you reaching out and listening for those voices and helping those voices to launch, to make things better for other people. So that was a long explanation for a short question.
Thank you.
I love it. I love
Janice, Janice Tufte, I see your comment here about mentoring and stuff. Do you want to say more about that?
Sure. One thing I found out is, I think we all create our own path and we all go about it differently. And if you are an introvert, it's going to be very different than if you're an extrovert. But I think all of us realize there's a power dynamic in healthcare. And if you haven't had a relationship with clinicians or researchers previously, I think that's more of a challenge, right? Like my mom was a nurse, my uncle was a surgeon. So I grew up, somewhat around it and so familiar and feel okay about talking, right? And but one thing is that, 10 years I've been involved with health systems research. I spent 10 years before then involved with housing, affordable housing, and all the social determinants of health stuff. So I've got all that under my belt. Now that is all at the top of the forefront of many health systems, change, quality improvement efforts. So I just kind of like came in at the right time, right? But I feel it's very important to have a voice in this space and to be able to promote patient and family or patient partner involvement. So I got involved with social media. I joined Twitter the day our last president became president. It wasn't anything political. I just started it that day. And it's all around health systems mostly and our healthcare work. And it's taken all these years, to really build up a following, as well as LinkedIn. I never had responses on LinkedIn. I've been on that for way over 10 years, until the last 2 years, where I've had people actually reach out to me about possible job opportunities or wanting to find information from me. And one of them was a young gal. Danny and I and others have talked about mentoring before. There was a big thread about a year ago with a number of caregivers, mostly talking about how do we mentor other individuals to be patient, to be involved. And so she reached out to me and said, hey, I'd really like to know how you do the work you do without industry money and, without being involved with pharma and industry. So I told her, and, Picori, I introduced her to a bunch of people and I called out 3 or 4 people I thought could benefit her. Danny was one of them. But the exciting thing is that was just a few months ago, right, Danny? Just, she's works in transitions. She's a youth. So transitions from youth to adulthood medicine. And she was a child. It's mostly, youth and children with chronic conditions. It's called Generation Patient. But I introduced her to one organization. I was sure they would get along great, and their project got funded by PCORI. I mean, it's so exciting with the patients program, and so to see that happen, right? And so it's a mutual. She'll write something to me and send me things, and I'll send things to her. But I'm there for her. And I also, another thing I've done for many years is really, because the Muslim community is so diverse, I really recognize that this space is a middle-aged white person mostly. And so, reaching out to my contacts and friends of different backgrounds and encouraging them to be on. I mean, some of them are people that are on, PFCC, on your DEI. There's a number of them that I actually, I introduced PFCC partners to. So I think it's about networking, but it's the same thing. If you're an extrovert or introvert, how do you go about that, right? And it's about how you feel comfortable and feel your own path. But I think it's important that we're there for other people when they ask for us, right? There's a number of people on this call I can certainly reach out to, even on the weekend, and ask a question to, and I feel comfortable about doing it, but everybody's not that way. So anyway, thank you all.
Thank you. Any other thoughts?
Me? Or-
No, anybody
Yeah.
else?
I-
Joe, what do you think?
I really like Emily's point about balance. And I think that's really what we're talking about, in addition to, Janice's comments are so well acknowledged, that this is critical. This is how we build community. We support each other. Sometimes you're the mentor, sometimes you're the mentee. It's making that space. But Emily, did you have anything to add about how you approach that balance?
Well, mine came out of a lot of activity in the mass movements in the 60s, some of which I'm really happy about, and some of which I look back on and I just have to kind of chuckle at my naivete and youthful exuberance, shall I say. And so one thing I had to learn was, yeah, I'm glad I spoke out. And there were times when I could have done a better job of listening. I heard what people were saying that could have helped me be more mature in the moment. And for a variety of reasons, I wasn't ready to listen. So that, and I look back on those times and just think about, things could have been very different if I had listened to them and just done something differently. And also, when I came out as a transgender woman, I had to advocate for healthcare rights for transgender people because I couldn't get my own gender confirming surgeries paid for by Medicare. But I quickly took that lesson from the 60s and thought through, okay, as I'm approaching people who are saying things that I deeply disagree with, but who are responsible in these big organizations for things, and under pressures that I don't really understand because I'm not there, how am I going to be present with them in a way that lets them understand the impact of the decisions they're participating in without making them to feel like I'm turning them into the enemy? And that balance between advocating, but like staying connected to my deeper values of everybody's a human being, and even if I disagree with you, I want to treat you as a human being. So that's the most impactful example for me.
Great example. I feel like that is such a perfect blend of, acknowledging that, yeah, we're going to disagree, but how do we do that in a way that is productive? I mean, it sounds to me like that deep listening means that you've been productive in those partnerships.
Yes. I actually played a small role in getting the Medicare denial of services for transgender gender confirming services overturned, along with other people and organizations and all. But and one of the people I talked to at CMS, I later sent her an email after I wrote my book, Turning Inside Out, and asked her, what was her reaction to my sending the email and these several emails I sent. And what she said really got to me in a deep way. She said, you weren't the first person who wrote in asking for it to be overturned, but she said, you were always on my mind as I talked to my colleagues. She said, we typically get 15 requests at a time to overturn various decisions. And we have to, do they really rise to the level that we should seriously consider them? What's the impact of them? Which ones are more important? And what she said was the way you told your story and other people's stories, I could carry into my colleagues. So it helped keep the conversation about transgender issues at the top of that list of 15.
Wow. Wow.
So it wasn't, I didn't have some big answer or something like that. It was just honestly telling my story and other people's stories and what was the impact on us of this denial.
Mhm.
It helped her to help her colleagues realize the importance of this issue.
I typed into the chat just a moment ago that as I'm listening to you, Emily, I think it's really important that when we do our advocacy, we need to make sure that it doesn't sound like we're coming from a victim place, but that we're helping to solve a problem. And I think that's an evolution that most of us are going to go through at some point. We sometimes get into this because we see a gaping hole in a need, oftentimes that personally affects us. And when we first recognize it and we share that, it may come across as victimhood. But as we get into this arena and listen more and refine the message, that victimhood turns to advocacy. So I just wanted to affirm that. I didn't want that comment to get just buried. Thank you, Emily.
Thank you. Thank you both. So, all right, Danny, we've got down self-awareness is a superpower. Got to know where you're coming from, where your lane is. What can you talk a little bit about different kinds of partnerships and how you found, sort of different strategies based on, not strategies, that's maybe too strong. Hey,
No, strategies. Absolutely.
is that right?
Strategies.
Yeah.
I mean, I would actually say that, now I'll pick on Janice, but I think that when Janice and I talk, when it's not like our personal business, what we talk about more than anything is, here's a situation. She's in this group. I'm in that group. We're trying to accomplish something. What is our strategy? I mean, that's what I do with the coach too, I mean, there's so many different ways to do things. And, I'm a lot better at other people's strategy for other people, to tell you the truth, and strategy for myself. But, which is why I, have a coach and like talk to other people, to get help. But, I think with advocacy, I'm trying to accomplish something. And first of all, it's a lot of work to figure out what it is I'm actually trying to accomplish. And as I've gotten more mature in my work, I do a lot less of like trying to interest people in the Kool-Aid and find myself in groups of people who have drunk the Kool-Aid. And then it's like, oh crap, what do we do now? So it's not so easy when you have a bunch of people that philosophically agree. And then like, what do you do? And thinking about what are the levers of power in the organization or the project. Do you control money? Are you a organization or a group that's a beacon? What is it that there is power to do? Because people talk a lot about, I don't know, I'm going to be not very nice, but, they just have this like happy horse shit where, it's like, this is all what we ought to do. And, this is all great. And, visioning, which is important, but, then now what? And okay, you do this, I'll do that. Or let's try this and see what happened. Oh, we tried this. It didn't work. I wonder, was it like not the right thing to do? Was it the wrong time? You know, like, whatever, you know, so it's like, you know, what, you know, debriefing, you know, when you're trying stuff is like, you know, like, how did it go? Because like I said, if your goal is to bat 300, that means that, 70% of the time you're not making it, and that is good. Well, okay, but if you're going to keep batting, 300, you gotta keep at it, and you gotta think, okay, now what am I going to do? Try something else. So
This work is definitely playing the long ball. It's not progress that we see immediately, which can be very frustrating, actually.
Well, I think, yes. I mean, I find more my goal now is to plant seeds. When I used to be a boss, so like I was I was either, a nurse manager, or I was a VP of quality management or something, anyway. And I would have really good staff, and they would like come out of the meeting and they would go, oh my God, I've been saying that for years. And now they're like just getting to this. And I'm going, yeah, that's success. I mean, somebody else has taken it as their own and they're running with it. I mean, just like pat yourself on the back. We'll have our little private celebration.
Right.
But it wasn't time. And now it is. So that's great. Yeah. It's a hard work. That's all I can say. I think this is hard work. And so
Good
I would say
morning.
one thing
Good
more.
morning. How are you?
I'm so happy you.
Karen, you might need to mute. There you go.
One of the things that's really important to me is I got to have fun doing this stuff. That in and of itself, it's fun. So that's like, who do you pick to work with?
Right.
What do you surround yourself with? And if there's like, I don't know, I've been joined up with some groups, and they're just like, people are depressed. And I'm sorry. I have like a few minutes for that, but I'm a pathologically optimistic person, and I don't want to mess with that. And so, I make sure that I'm having fun, and I'm old, so I'm like, I only got, whatever years I got left, and I'm going to have a good time doing it. And I think, Janice was saying something about sustainability. And I think, a part of sustainability is like having fun and not feeling like you're beating your head against the wall. Because beating your head against the wall, I don't know what I'm saying there, because, I mean, so much of this work is beating your head against the wall. But am I saying have fun beating your head against the wall? Maybe, I don't know. It's how you frame it, I guess.
I keep going back to community, go do your things. When you need your cup refilled, come back to others who are doing the same work. I wanted to call out Karen's question in the chat. And Karen, I don't know if you want to come off mute and explain a little bit more what you're looking for. You might be involved. Okay, so she says she'd love to hear more about strategy for developing new advocacy partnerships, how to find the right cadence without making partnerships seem overwhelming. So maybe you've got an organization that's like, yeah, we want to do this, really feeling hesitant. And we might refer to some of those folks as yeah butters. Yeah, but we can't do that right now. Yeah, that's a great idea, but we don't have the staff. Yeah, but yeah butters. So how do we move yeah butters into partners? Any ideas?
I'll let somebody else answer that one.
Dion's got her hand up.
Oh, thank you, Dion.
Hi.
Hi.
This happens to me a lot, especially being a woman, a Black woman, and everybody wanting to have a DEI they say they want DEI, but they don't want DEI.
Mhm.
I don't know what that's about. I don't know if it's, the Ryan Holiday book, Ego is the Enemy or whatever. When you read that book, in the advocacy work, in the advocacy space, you have people, this is what I'm finding, this is a blanket statement. There are two types of people. There are people that really want to be impactful. And then there are people that want to say that they're impactful for the sake of photo ops, money, grants, notoriety, LinkedIn cred, or whatever you want to call it. What I'm finding is I'm partnering, I am a part of a few groups where we really do a good job with, it's like a marriage or a family, a multi-generational household, I'll say that, where everybody has their role. Grandma makes spaghetti or pasta, and then granddad makes the juice. Everybody knows what they're good at, and they don't let ego get in the way of them doing their particular job. Just like Danny said, this is grunt work. People get tired. And then your expectation of the people within partnerships shouldn't be, it's not always going to be equal, because advocacy work is tiring, especially in certain times of the year. Like for me in the rare disease space, February is a heavy month for us. It's heavy with travel, it's heavy with creating what you're going to say. And so when you don't look at the collaborations or the partnerships as such, there are going to be times that I can't get on a call because I'm doing other things. It doesn't mean that it's not important to me. And the people that are on the receiving end need to be able to understand that. And not take it personally, because it's not a personal thing. We're all working together for the collective for the greater good. And I think that once we get to that, then everybody will be able to work together and know their role. You know your lane, you stay in your lane. Not necessarily doesn't mean that this is all you need to do, but if you're really good with writing copy, then and then you want to create a collaborative group, then let the person that writes well be over the newsletter. But someone like Lori, if you're good with if you're the person that gets the people together, then let her reach out to the people and say this, we're having we have a newsletter that we want you to contribute to. Can you reach out to Elizabeth to get her to, so she can get the content? And I think a lot of times it gets lost. And then people take things so personally because this is a personal thing. And some of us are patients, some of us are caregivers. And sometimes I think that ego takes over, and ego is not a bad thing. It's when it goes unchecked or it gets out of control that the problems arise. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Dion. I'm really glad that you shared that. I think what you're really speaking to is a comment I saw from Rosie too, that I'd love to hear more about. It's building the relationships. And that takes checking your ego, right? It's very hard to enter a healthy relationship if one person's got all kinds of ego and the other, is lost in that. So I don't know, Rosie, do you have more thoughts about how building relationships is important?
Well, I guess when I think about building relationships, many times, and I look at the work that I've done over the years, it hasn't always been about solving the problem, but it's been about building the relationships to help people then understand the problem and then come up with solutions themselves. And I like to be the person who, comes up with this is a challenging thing and here's some ideas, but I don't want to be the person who always has the answers, because, that's not what this is about. And, I have to tell you that I've during the last year, I've literally listened and paid attention to a lot of things. And, you know, the work that we do is so, you know, like when Emily's telling her story, or when any of us are telling our story and somebody cuts us off, or somebody cuts somebody off, or says, well, your time is up, you know, even though they might not have they might have one more sentence to say. That might be the most important sentence. And I've literally called out some people that don't understand what the patient's advisory work is, and why the story is so important, and what it feels like when somebody cuts you off. You know, I once saw a speaker walk out of the room when somebody cut her off, and I didn't understand why she did it. But now today I do, because it's, you know, when it happens to you, when somebody cuts you off, or tells you you don't understand, or tells you don't have the answer, you know, it's not then building relationships. It's then just being, I know better than you know. And I don't, you know, that makes you feel then like you don't have a purpose, and your purpose isn't important. And building relationships is like everybody has the purpose. Everybody has a viewpoint, and everybody's viewpoint is important. And I guess part of the reason I want to do more international work is because, you know, the voices I hear in the room today, I've had 4 international calls this week, and at 6 o'clock in the morning, because that's what happens when you decide you're going to do some international work. And every one of them, the voices were the same. The messages were the same. The concerns were the same. And the word building relationships, and staying in your lane, and understanding both sides of the fence. And, you know, that, you know, we talk about this often, you know, it's not just building relationships with each other, but it's also building relationships with healthcare and with healthcare providers. You know, I think sometimes we forget about that, because it's real easy to say, well, they did this and I didn't like this. But it's better to build the relationship and then talk about it, rather than saying, well, they did it wrong. They may not even see it, because that's the way they do it. And then once you tell your story and share your feelings and your thoughts, and they share theirs, and you come to a solution together, that's building the relationship. And then there's a buy-in on both sides too. And that's what I firmly believe, that everything is about communication and relationships.
Yeah.
And if you can do those 2 things well, you know, and you're going to laugh, because most people will believe that I'm the biggest extrovert in the whole wide world, but I'm not. I mean, I get butterflies in my stomach every time I press the raise my hand button, or, you know, and I used to tell people, if you don't get butterflies, that's when you're not anymore providing you're not dynamic. But some people don't need butterflies, but I need butterflies in my stomach to say the things I say, and to believe in the things. And, you know, when I started teaching, I mean, when I left the convent, I probably said 2 words in a day, and it usually was, God bless you, sister, because I was being called on the carpet for something, and then the response for that was, God bless you, sister. Even if you didn't do it wrong, you still said, God bless you, sister, and you left. And so, I mean, it was a principal that I worked under my first year, who pulled me in the office one day and yelled at me and said, and then I said, God bless you, sister, and was leaving. And she goes, wait a minute, did you do that? And I'm like, no, but that's my training. That's what I've been told I have to do with nuns, is say, God bless you, sister. And she said, no, you don't have to do that anymore. You're not in the convent anymore. Plus, when we leave the convent as professed nuns, we don't do that either, you know. But nobody, you know, but you know, I was quiet. I left. I mean, even though I was the oldest, I was not always the most outspoken in my family. I might have carried the load of work, but I didn't always carry the voice. So I wasn't Sherry.
Got a lot of big families on this call. Well, thank you so much, Rosie. I think that's really important. And yes, the story does, sort of validate the data. That's what we look at all the time. And I think the problems that we are partnering to solve are hard problems. They're complex problems that have been developed over decades. And so, staying in there and trying to unravel new things, even I see one of our partners, Annette, on the call today, looking at the new CMS rule for social drivers of health. How are we going to screen people if we don't have enough resources? We're worried about that. The hospitals are worried about that. There's no reason we shouldn't be aligning, creating relationships so that we can solve these really complex problems together. So I think we just about need to wrap up to get to some engagement opportunities, but Danny, any final thoughts and words of wisdom for us?
Final thoughts and words of wisdom. I mean, I think yeah, hang out with good people, enjoy yourself, be really delighted when you bat 300, and keep at it. I don't know. That's all I got.
That's awesome. That is incredible. And I know just reading the comments, everybody's contributed so much to this conversation, and I really appreciate it. And I also want to call back to the fact that Laura recorded this session, and I just think there's so much value in sharing with the folks from the network that couldn't attend today, all of your thoughts and wisdom. So if you're good with that, I think we'll take that chat and put it out in the world and help others to find their lane and find their footing in this work as well. If anyone is concerned about that, please just send Laura an email. Laura, can you put your email in the chat for me, please?
Yep.
Thank you. But I couldn't thank you enough for showing up today and contributing today. I think we have a couple of engagement opportunities. Laura, do you want to share?
Yeah, let's see if it's in here.
What
Okay,
a
cool.
great conversation.
It was. Thank
Love
you.
coffee
everybody.
chats. Just a time to
Me too.
decompress and reflect. Love it.
Mhm. Me too. Thank you, everybody. Before we head out today, we did want to share a few engagement opportunities. We have this one was on, I think, our last coffee chat, that this cost measures field testing survey from Acumen is now open. If you have lived experience in the 5 episode based cost measures below, there's kidney transplant management, prostate cancer, rheumatoid arthritis, chronic kidney disease, and end-stage renal disease. There is the field testing. They're looking to patients and families for feedback on measure specifications, draft measure specifications. So let me add that in the chat, the link for that one.
And while Laura's grabbing that, I'll also mention that I was in a meeting with Acumen, as you well know. Acumen is one of our great partners, and they are bringing patient and family perspective into developing their pre-rulemaking, so way upstream in the process. And what they're interested in knowing about is how much patients and families want to or would be impacted by understanding clinicians' fees and rates. So oftentimes you see one clinician charges X for a knee replacement, another one charges Y for a replacement. What's the difference? And sometimes the data shows that the difference is because there's more complications, and so that rate goes higher, and for a variety of other reasons. So I just wanted to put that out there. That's coming down the pike. We're going to do a listening session. So if this financial aspect is of interest to any of you, I'd love to have you participate. And of course, there'll be a stipend. Okay, Laura.
All right. Any questions on this one? The link is in the chat. If you need help filling out the survey or anything, feel free to email me, or you can call the office, and I will get back to you and I can help you fill out the survey. And then the last one is we have LA Times got in contact with us, which is kind of exciting. One of the reporters from LA Times is, she writes on public health, and she's writing an article about the increase of hospital-acquired sepsis in California during the pandemic. So she would like to interview someone who was personally affected by hospital-acquired sepsis in California during the pandemic. And that could be someone who themselves got sepsis at the hospital or someone whose loved one got sepsis at the hospital. She's looking at the time frame of March 2020 to the present. So if you're interested in talking to her and getting connected, my email is there on the screen. I also added it to the chat earlier. Just email me and we'll get you connected to Emily, I believe is her name. And that is it. We have, of course, these coffee chats monthly. If you have a topic or a project that you would like to share with the PFA network, feel free to email me. We do also have an interest form that I can send out in follow-up, and we can get you set up to do a coffee chat just like this.
Laura, may I ask a quick question?
Of course.
When we now go to fill out a registration for you, it says that our registration is pending and we'll get an email. And I have to tell you, I filled out the registration for this, and then I had to go back in just before the thing and fill it out again. And I filled out the registration for next Friday, and I still haven't gotten an email. I filled that out like several hours ago, and I still haven't gotten an email saying I was approved. It says that you have to wait for approval.
Oh, that was for this coffee chat?
The coffee chat, next week's
Community practice.
meeting, yeah, the PFCC partner meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, and I understand that there might have to be an approval, that approval process for us to sign in, but it's now several hours, and I don't think I ever would have. And then when I went in, I had to give an idea for. When I went back in to register, it said I had to give an idea for another coffee chat in order for me to register a second time.
Okay. All right. We will take a look at that. That might have been an update that we weren't aware. Zoom is constantly.
Yeah, well, Zoom is
updating
always
and adding new
updating. So I
things.
just wanted you to be aware that this is
Thank you.
happening to people. So
Thank you.
I
We will
find
go in.
I find that section at the very bottom of the registration, ideas for a coffee chat or questions that you want to ask the presenter, if you don't put none or not applicable in there, you don't get registered. You have to put some sort of comment in that box. And I think that that's a deficit in that system.
Yeah, we will go in and make sure that's not a required thing.
Yeah,
We'll go in and check all of it, make sure.
I
It's not
just got the approval now for next Friday's meeting.
Because I just sent it. I just sent it, Rosie.
Huh?
I just went in and sent them.
Okay.
I didn't realize